Hey everyone, this is Jay, also known as jaynemesis on eToro, where I am a popular investor. This is week 20 of our 2018 weekly updates for eToro. Our weekly stats this week, we have a portfolio change of minus 1.36%, a realized profit of plus 0.15%, and 26 trades were closed in total this week. Our top news, blockchain week and consensus has kicked off in New York. There wasn't really too much news that came out of this, so I guess I'm just going to tell you about a kind of interesting bet that happened on the stage between Jimmy Song and Joe Lubin. So these are two pretty prominent figures in the blockchain space. And Jimmy Song is a Bitcoin maximalist, so he's very, very keen on the idea that Bitcoin is the biggest innovation in cryptocurrency, and that's where everyone's efforts should be focused. Whereas Joe Lubin actually is a co-founder of Consensus, and he works on a lot of stuff around Ethereum. Basically, he had a bet with Jimmy about the chances of there being five altcoin projects still around in 5 years' time. So the specifics of the bet haven't really been ironed out, but effectively the bet is along the lines of Jimmy believes that there will not be any cryptocurrency altcoins still around in 5 years' time, whereas Joe believes that there will still be at least five with at least 1 million users each around in 5 years' time. So we'll see how it turns out, but it's kind of an interesting bet. I actually made this focus on my latest article for the Evening Standard, so if you want to kind of read into what I think about their bet and what I think about the state of altcoins overall, then that's probably a cool place to go and check it out. The Chinese government have put out a list of cryptocurrency ranks. So this is sent out by the Chinese Ministry of Industry and IT. And they basically ranked cryptocurrencies based off of three different categories. They were technology, innovation, and application. So it's a pretty interesting list, as you'll probably hear once I've read it out. I'm going to go through the top 10 first. Then I'm going to list where some of the major cryptos that are traded on eToro that we often look at and trade are ranked, and then I will kind of give my thoughts on it. So in first place, we have Ethereum. Not really too surprising. We've seen this featured pretty high in some rankings given out by other firms in the past. And for the rest of the top 10, we have Steem, Lisk, Neo, Komodo, then Stellar, Cardano, IOTA, Monero, and finally Stratis. So it's kind of a reasonable top 10. Neo's featuring quite near the top. Steem is up there. And we've got, the likes of Cardano and IOTA, Monero up in the top 10 as well. For the remaining cryptocurrencies that are regularly traded on eToro, we have Bitcoin, XRP, Dash, and Litecoin all featuring in the list, but substantially further down. So Bitcoin is in 13th place, XRP and Dash are in 17th and 18th. Litecoin is in 21st, and Bitcoin Cash is in 25th place. Now, if we kind of take a step back from this list and kind of look at it from, from my perspective at least, I find some things pretty concerning about the list. So obviously I've omitted some of the results because I don't want to list every single cryptocurrency in the list, but Verge was actually featured in 14th place. And Verge is a cryptocurrency that I've been very outspoken about before, suggesting it's pretty bad. It's one of the only cryptocurrencies up in the top 50 or so that's ever suffered from a 51% attack. They've also had problems with identities being revealed from transactions, in fact, even IP addresses. And they've had a lot of different problems. The shambles that was their crowdfunding for the Pornhub partnership announcement, for example. So for them to be up in 14th place, which is just one place behind Bitcoin, I find very concerning and very suspicious. So I'm pretty skeptical based off of that alone. The next thing that I find very strange is that both Tron and EOS were not featured in this list anywhere. And it could be because both of these cryptocurrencies haven't launched yet. But considering that they're just 1 week away from launching, I find it really strange that they were not included in the list. So given this information, I'm actually really very skeptical about this. If you dig a bit deeper and you actually look at the scores they gave based on technology and innovation and application, for example, it's still quite strange because while Bitcoin is very conservative in its technology, it does have some of the best technology. Lightning Network especially is very, very strong. SegWit was, again, a technology that was developed by them. And of course, their technology is almost identical to Litecoin's, as is the application and innovation, I guess. So it's very strange that those two would be so far apart. And of course, Bitcoin Cash down in 25th place, although I'm okay with that one. But overall, pretty strange list, but I thought it was worth mentioning because it's an interesting insight, and I think a lot of people will be trading based off of this information. Next up, we have news coming out from Activision. So a week ago, when I wrote my weekly report for last week, I made a prediction in that report, and the prediction was based off of the earnings call I listened to from Activision Blizzard. So in that earnings call, there was a lot of language used that kind of suggested to me that Blizzard or Activision were working on Battle Royale gameplay. And I wasn't too sure on whether it was going to be in the next Call of Duty game or if they were working on their own IP, but I did guess that it would be at least one of the two, possibly even both. And here we are a week later. The new trailer for Black Ops 4 is now out and released after they had their big launch day thing, press reveal day. And sure enough, they have Battle Royale. And this actually caused a pretty substantial little spike in Activision's share price as people were excited by it, obviously seeing the success of Fortnite and PUBG, which are, games that I enjoy. So I think this is actually going to do really, really well because, Call of Duty is known for its fast-paced combat, and it's also known as one of the biggest, most successful titles in gaming that still is around today. So I'm actually pretty excited for it. I think it's good news, and I think that the market will react really well to it. Only downside is that we still have to wait until October before we get to really see just how well it does sell. Let's take a look back at our cryptocurrency trading for the past week. So EOS has been an interesting one. It's actually one of my most traded, it is my most traded crypto over the past week. But although I was expecting there to be a drop alongside the market, we saw some substantial bad news coming out surrounding EOS. There was accusations of fraud for Upbit, which is one of Korea's largest exchanges, and the theory was that they had been moving funds from consumers' wallets into the wallets of some of the directors of the company. This has since been all cleared up, and nothing crazy was happening. There was at the same time there was some other news specific to EOS suggesting that EOS had been stolen as well from the exchange, which was pretty big news, and that was circulating on a lot of news websites. But in fact, actually, if we kind of fast forward a few days, they announced some pretty good news actually, which is that first of all they're going to be supporting the token swap. So if you have any EOS tokens on their exchange, they will be converted to the mainnet tokens upon the launch. And second of all, they actually announced that they're running as a block producer candidate for EOS as well. So they plan on actually helping run and maintain the EOS network. So it turned out to be good news, but the market is still, somewhat damaged from it. It did sink as low as $12, even a little bit lower, I think, for a short period of time. So not a great week for EOS, but we still managed to close out a few trades, and I bought the dip when I saw it hitting those lows. For the rest of my cryptocurrencies, honestly, I've done very, very little trading. A couple of positions in Litecoin, Bitcoin, and Stellar, but nothing really to scream and shout about. So not too much to really look at there, really. I mean, feel free to go and have a look at the trades if you want, but they're all around 1% or so profit. With stocks, so AMD, I actually closed 4 positions here as well, and I've kind of reshuffled this back into my portfolio. I've reopened a few since then. With some reasonable little profits, and I think all of my positions there are currently green as well. I actually noticed something very interesting in one of the EOS communities that I'm part of, which is that AMD appear, and it could just be one lone sales guy who's doing it, but they do appear to be going after the block producer candidates for EOS and basically pitching their Epic Ryzen CPUs and server solutions to them. So this is kind of interesting because obviously if they manage to win a lot of these and they manage to convince these block producers to go with AMD hardware, then that's very good news for AMD if EOS is successful, because these guys will scale up and they'll potentially scale up to some substantial size and some pretty large orders from AMD. So I just found that kind of interesting. It's not really news as such, but I just kind of wanted to include it here. Next up, Microsoft. So I closed 2 trades here, nothing crazy, 1.5% and 3.5% gains respectively. Take-Two has been another stock that's been pretty interesting recently. Again, last week I mentioned in my weekly update that I was very keen on Take-Two and Activision Blizzard for the remainder of the year. And although their earnings didn't come in amazing, they have seen some good volatility, and I had some 2x leverage positions open and managed to get some really good profits out of those. Still very bullish on them for the rest of the year. There's some big titles coming up by them, so something to look out for. Next up, we have Nvidia. So Nvidia is a company that's been performing very, very well recently. I actually took a bit of profit out at around 249, 250, and a little bit more about 242 or so. And currently the price is still at around 242. So I'm just waiting for it to drop back below 240 or so before I start reopening a few more positions. But I'm still very bullish on them overall as a company. I think they've got a long way to go, and I don't think they're particularly overvalued as such at the moment. Finally, NASDAQ and gold. So I closed my short on the NASDAQ and my long on gold. Both of these were open as hedges for if the market decided to take a bad turn, so that I would have some funds available, earn some profit from these positions, close them, and then have the funds available to reinvest at lower prices into the stock markets. In fact, this hasn't really panned out, which is obviously a good thing because most of my money was not in these trades. It was in the actual stocks. So I decided to cut the loss because it really does feel like the market has stabilized a lot more now after its first couple of turbulent months for the year. And I wanted to basically cut the losses and use the money to invest elsewhere. Our realized trading stats for this week. So we have 26 trades closed in total, 23 of which were profitable and 3 of which were not profitable. The average trade profit was 3.09%, and the average trade loss was 18.4%. Again, this was primarily caused by those 2 positions I just referenced. The most traded instrument, no surprise, was EOS, but that was tied with AMD. And our total realized profit for the week is plus 0.15%. So if we zoom out and take a look at our performance for the past month, you can see that May is not shaping up too well, but it's also not the disaster that we saw at the start of the year, at least not yet, touch wood. We've still got just over a week or so to try and turn it around and turn it into a green month. I think actually if you kind of analyze my trading history for the past month or so, it's pretty clear to me that most of that loss is due to cryptocurrencies dropping back down and retreating a bit from some of the gains they made in April, and that the stocks have actually performed really quite well over that period, and that my earnings period did go quite well overall. If you look at it from a weekly perspective, you can see obviously week 17 was an amazing week. Week 18 was pretty good. 19 and 20 were both in the red, but nothing too substantial. Remember that this is not realized trading figures on this screen. This is the actual performance of the overall portfolio. So this past week, minus 1.36%. I'm not too unhappy about considering how cryptocurrencies have performed. So let's take a look ahead and see what's coming. So as I mentioned in my previous update, and I think even the one before, now the earnings period has kind of come to a close. I do expect it to be a bit quieter. You saw that I only actually traded 26 trades this week. Last week was only 25, I think. So quite low compared to the 30 to 40 that we normally see. I expect this to continue for a while as the markets can kind of settle into some sort of a rhythm. There's not too much volatility in most stocks at the moment, so it's quite difficult to trade and make any strong returns. But when it does happen, I have set some money aside, currently around about 8% of my funds or so, ready to invest in any good trading opportunities that I see. The stuff I plan on trading, of course, Snapchat, my favorite thing to short. I still think that company has got absolutely no future. And I feel really bad because shorting isn't something that really comes naturally to me, but Snapchat has been very, very good for me shorting wise. I think there's also some potential opportunities around Tesla, which isn't on this list, but the main ones I'm looking at are Twitter, Square, Activision, and perhaps AMD as well. So those are the main stocks that I plan on trading. Of course, on top of that, I will be trying to seek out any opportunities in EOS and in Bitcoin. Speaking of EOS, of course, we are now even closer to the launch event for EOS and Tron, which also happens. And I actually think that these two events could end up being a catalyst for a big bull market or potentially bear market if it goes badly for the remainder of the crypto space. I think Ethereum especially will be very, very heavily affected by these, since both of these platforms are competitors to Ethereum. Both of the launches take place at the end of the month, so we'll be building up towards that period and making sure that we are well positioned for whichever way the move goes. So I personally think it will go well, so most of my funds are going to remain invested, but I have been taking small bits of profit here and there just to make sure that we are safe if it does go badly. That just about sums it up for me, guys. Thanks again for watching. I do apologize for not making a video last week. But yeah, I was away on the Isle of Wight. I got back. I was feeling pretty ill. I actually had sunstroke, I think, or heat stroke, whatever you want to call it. So I was really tired and really hot and dehydrated for the most part. So yeah, I just didn't get around to making the video. By the time I was feeling up to doing it, it was Wednesday, and at that point I thought it wasn't really worth it anymore. So I do apologize, but we did at least get the written version out. If you like this video, if you like my content, and if you are happy with my trading, or even if you're unhappy with my trading, please go and follow me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and eToro, and maybe even Facebook if you want to as well, though I think I'm actually closed that Facebook because, to be honest, I never check Facebook anymore. So again, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all next week.